You hear the music. Hello, everybody. I'm Matt Robinson, and welcome to another exciting edition of the League Wraparound. This is the program that gets you caught up on anything and everything happening around the world of the NFL. Coming up on this edition of the program, that's right, the playoffs are here. The regular season is over with, and we'll preview the NFL playoffs. Specifically, we'll preview Super Wildcard Weekend. Also, we have the latest head coaching firings. Also, we'll have your all-pro rosters, your game picks, and so much more. So just sit back, relax, and enjoy the program. And on behalf of my family to yours, I'd like to wish you and yours a safe and prosperous Happy New Year. All right, so before we preview Super Wildcard Weekend, let's get you caught up on Week 18. Let's recap Week 18's most important games in the final week of the 2024-2025 NFL regular season. The Cleveland Browns took on the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens beat the Browns 35-10. The Cincinnati Bengals beat the Pittsburgh Steelers 19-17. In overtime, we had the Carolina Panthers take on the Atlanta Falcons. Carolina would win 44-38. The New Orleans Saints took on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay would win 27-19. The Washington Commanders and the Dallas Cowboys had another thrilling game in that continued rivalry. Washington would win 23-19. The Kansas City Chiefs took on the Denver Broncos. Denver would shut out Kansas City. Final score, 38-0. We had the Miami Dolphins take on the New York Jets. Could this have been Aaron Rodgers' last game in the NFL? Or maybe his last game as a New York Jet? The Jets win in the finale. Final score, New York 32, Miami 20. Sunday Night Football was between the Minnesota Vikings and the Detroit Lions. Detroit manhandled Minnesota. Final score, 31-9. This game, Detroit gets the number one seed. They win the NFC North Division, and they get home field advantage throughout the playoffs. And those were your scores from Week 18's most important games in the NFL. All right, as always, I like to start off with my top three storylines. I like to start off talking about Aaron Rodgers. So, Aaron Rodgers is many things. He's an enigma. He's talented. Some say he can be strange. Some say he's controversial. A lot of people, including myself, think he will be a first ballot Hall of Famer whenever he decides to hang it up. In the Week 18 regular season finale with his New York Jets playing the Miami Dolphins, Rodgers hit another milestone. He became the fifth quarterback in NFL history to throw for over 500 career touchdown passes. Rodgers finished the game impressive. He passed for 274 yards, and he had 4 touchdown passes and an interception. So currently, Rodgers has 503 career touchdown passes in his career. The way Rodgers played in the last month and a half as the quarterback of the New York Jets was impressive. Did Rodgers have a great year this year? No, he didn't. Did he have a good year this year? No, he didn't. I would say his 2024 season was decent, marginal, was solid, but you can tell that really much of the year he was playing with not much confidence. Specifically, if you watch the Jets play this year and how he was running up and down the field, he was questioning to see if he still had it, coming off of an Achilles injury. That's a lot. But the last month and a half, Rodgers played with more confidence game by game. He still had the rocket arm. He was running up and down the field. You could see that he was slowly building his confidence back up. I don't know if we saw Aaron Rodgers one last time in the NFL or if it's his last time being a member of the New York Jets, but Aaron Rodgers still has it. I think he can still play. Now, I don't know, pending what happens at the end of the season, when the playoffs are over with, and, of course, whenever whichever team hoists the Lombardi Trophy in February, what's going to happen. And then, of course, the NFL Draft will be in April. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, this is going to be, I mean, this past draft, the 2024 NFL draft, was loaded with talent at the quarterback position. This year's draft, very little quarterback talent. I mean, you have Shedeur Sanders, there's Cam Ward, there's also Quinn Ewers, and you've got Dylan Gabriel. But it just doesn't have the pop like a Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels and Drake May and J.J. McCarthy and Michael Penix Jr. and Bo Nix. It just doesn't have the pop like 2024. Me, honestly, I think Aaron returns for the 2025 NFL season. I see Aaron Rodgers being the quarterback of the New York Jets, and I also see a possible reunion happening with the New York Jets and Rex Ryan. And I'll get into all of the head coaching firings in just a little bit. But bottom line is this. Aaron Rodgers, he was beat up this year, took a lot of sacks, you know, but the last month and a half, the confidence was growing slowly but surely. Again, yeah, coming off of the Achilles injury, you know, he was concerned, and there were concerns about how mobile could he be. There were flashes of the old Aaron Rodgers in terms of the mobility side, but bottom line is this. Aaron Rodgers is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, and I do see him playing next season in the 2025 NFL season, and I see him back in that green and white as a New York Jet. My next storyline is going to be head coach firings. So as always, the day after the NFL regular season is complete, Monday is always a sad day in the NFL. It's referred to as Black Monday. You have head coach firings, and you have GMs, general managers that are let go. So far we had Doug Peterson was let go by the Jacksonville Jaguars after 3 seasons with the team. It included a playoff appearance, a playoff win, and a one AFC South Division title. So during his time with Jacksonville, he had a record, his overall head coaching record was 22 wins and 29 losses. The New England Patriots, they let go of Gerard Mayo after just 1 season with the team. They went 4-13. The Las Vegas Raiders, after only 1.5 seasons as the head coach of the Raiders, Antonio Pierce, he was let go. Now, the Pierce firing, I think the Raiders should have stayed with him at least 2 more years. I think if the Raiders get their quarterback, Pierce should have stayed with the team. If you look at last year when Pierce was the interim head coach and the Raiders, they beat the Chiefs on Christmas Day at Arrowhead. And then this year, the Raiders had a close game with the Chiefs at Arrowhead on the Black Friday game. They didn't win that game, but they challenged Kansas City. With the Raiders getting their quarterback, I really thought Pierce should have been given at least 1, maybe 2 more years as the head coach. Peterson in Jacksonville, I could see that coming. Mayo and the Patriots, I probably would have given that at least 1 more year, but the writings were on the wall with that one. But I really thought Pierce should have been given at least 2 more years. If the Raiders draft their quarterback, I think Antonio could have worked with something there, but hey, you know, the NFL, it doesn't just stand for the National Football League. It stands for not for long. And not for long will you have a job. And hey, it comes with the territory. It's a business. And, you know, the Raiders, we'll see what happens with that ownership, man. But a once proud franchise, and, you know, it still is one of the most respected franchises, not just in the NFL, but in all of sports, but just questionable decisions. And I thought Pierce should have stayed at least maybe 2 more years with the team. You draft the quarterback, and let's see what happens. But Antonio Pierce no longer the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. So as I mentioned earlier, Doug Peterson let go by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Gerard Mayo let go by the New England Patriots. Also, after 2 seasons as the general manager of the Tennessee Titans, Ran Carthon was let go from the team, and the Las Vegas Raiders fired their general manager after only 1 season, Tom Telesco. So It's an unfortunate thing the day after the regular season is over with. Black Monday, teams find out they're going to be missing the playoffs. And then also, too, you have teams that find out that their coaches or their general managers will no longer be with the team. And then also, too, the Miami Dolphins, they've let go of their wide receivers coach, Wes Welker, that's an interesting move right there because Miami, the last couple of years, one of the best offenses in the league. Head coach Mike McDaniel certainly rocking and rolling with that offense. And, Wes Welker, when you think about him, one of the toughest receivers to play in the league. In Miami, they've got, of course, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Jonnu Smith at the tight end position. That was an interesting move right there by the Miami Dolphins to do that, but that was a little bit of a shocker right there. But again, Wes Welker let go by the Dolphins as wide receivers coach. So again, it's the unfortunate case of being in the National Football League. The NFL also stands for not for long, and not for long will you have a job. And sometimes when it's results driven, you still can be let go, or even when results are not being met, you still get to keep a job. Wow, it's an interesting thing, man. It's very, very interesting. But anyhow, again, that's the latest standings currently in the National Football League in terms of head coach and general manager firings. And my last storyline is going to be the NFL playoffs. So the regular season is over with. The second season is here. And we've got some solid matchups, which we'll get into in just a little bit. But Chargers-Texans, Steelers-Ravens, Broncos-Bills, Packers-Eagles, Commanders-Buccaneers, Vikings-Rams. All of these games are going to be top-notch. I think there's some few matchups that are going to stand out when it comes to this, but overall, man, I mean, this is what makes the NFL so unique. Regular season was solid, but I think the playoffs are going to be better because, hey, there is no, you lose this game, hey, there's always next week. No, there is no next week. In the words of the late, great Carl Weathers in Apollo Creed in Rocky III, you got to understand, Stallion, there is no tomorrow, and there is no tomorrow. You know what there is? There is a vacation to Cancun or Cabo or Cozumel. That's what there is. There is no tomorrow. You win, you play another week. You lose, there is no tomorrow. There is no next week, and it's just that simple. But this should be some fantastic games, and we're going to preview them in just a little bit. All right, so before we get into previewing the Super Wildcard Weekend and the playoff matchups, the 2024 All-Pro teams were released, and according to the Associated Press, the Pro Football Writers of America, and the Sporting News. So let's start off with offense. The All-Pro team for the year 2024, at the first team offense at the quarterback position, Lamar Jackson from the Baltimore Ravens. At the running back position, Saquon Barkley from the Philadelphia Eagles. At fullback, we have Patrick Ricard from the Baltimore Ravens. At the wide receiver position, Jamar Chase from the Cincinnati Bengals. Also, Justin Jefferson from the Minnesota Vikings. And Amon-Ra St. Brown from the Detroit Lions. At the tight end position, Brock Bowers from the Las Vegas Raiders. Left tackle is Tristan Wirfs from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. At left guard, Joe Thuney from the Kansas City Chiefs. At center, we had Creed Humphrey from the Kansas City Chiefs. At right guard, Quinn Miners from the Denver Broncos. And at right tackle, Penei Sewell from the Detroit Lions. And at second team offense, at quarterback, Josh Allen from the Buffalo Bills. At running back, Derrick Henry from the Baltimore Ravens. At fullback, Kyle Juszczyk from the San Francisco 49ers. The wide receivers, Terry McLaurin from the Washington Commanders, CeeDee Lamb from the Dallas Cowboys, and A.J. Brown from the Philadelphia Eagles. At the tight end position, George Kittle from the San Francisco 49ers. At left tackle, Jordan Mailata from the Philadelphia Eagles. At left guard, Quentin Nelson from the Indianapolis Colts. At the center position, Frank Ragnow from the Detroit Lions. At the right guard position, Chris Lindstrom from the Atlanta Falcons. And at right tackle, Lane Johnson from the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's move over now to the defensive side. First team defense. At the edge rusher position, Myles Garrett from the Cleveland Browns and Trey Hendrickson from the Cincinnati Bengals. At defensive tackle, Cam Hayward from the Pittsburgh Steelers and Chris Jones from the Kansas City Chiefs. Linebackers, Zach Bond from the Philadelphia Eagles, Fred Warner from the San Francisco 49ers, Roquan Smith from the Baltimore Ravens. The cornerbacks, Patrick Surtain from the Denver Broncos and Derek Stingley Jr. from the Houston Texans. The nickelback will be Marlon Humphrey from the Baltimore Ravens. And the safeties are Kirby Joseph from the Detroit Lions and Xavier McKinney from the Green Bay Packers. At second team defense, the edge rushers are T.J. Watt from the Pittsburgh Steelers, Nick Bonito from the Denver Broncos, Andrew Van Ginkel from the Minnesota Vikings. The defensive tackles will be Zach Allen from the Denver Broncos and Jalen Carter from the Philadelphia Eagles. The linebackers are Frankie Louvu and Bobby Wagner from the Washington Commanders and Zaire Franklin from the Indianapolis Colts. The cornerbacks will be Trent McDuffie from the Kansas City Chiefs and Christian Gonzalez from the New England Patriots. At the nickelback position, Derwin James from the Los Angeles Chargers. And at the safety position, Kyle Hamilton from the Baltimore Ravens and Budda Baker from the Arizona Cardinals. And at special teams, first team place kicker will be Chris Boswell from the Pittsburgh Steelers. At the punter position, Jack Fox from the Detroit Lions. At kickoff returner, Cavante Turpin from the Dallas Cowboys. Punt returner, Marvin Mims Jr. from the Denver Broncos. At the special teamer will be Brendan Schooler from the New England Patriots. And the long snapper will be Andrew DePaula from the Minnesota Vikings. And the second team, place kicker, Brandon Aubrey from the Dallas Cowboys. At punter, Logan Cook from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Kickoff returner, Austin Eckler from the Washington Commanders. Punt returner, Khalif Raymond from the Detroit Lions. Special teamer, J.T. Gray from the New Orleans Saints. And the long snapper was Ross Matisic from the Jacksonville Jaguars. And there you have it. Those are your 2024 All-Pro team selections, first and second team. Again, these selections were made by the Associated Press, Football Writers of America, and the Sporting News. All right, so that takes care of that. Now let's preview Super Wildcard Weekend in the NFL playoffs. We have the Los Angeles Chargers going up against the Houston Texans. So the Chargers and the Texans, these are two teams that have gone through a lot recently. Let's start off with the Chargers. Our thoughts and prayers are with the victims of people that are really going through it during the terrible wildfires in the Los Angeles area and specifically in that portion of Southern California. So the Chargers going through a lot emotionally. It's an emotional high coming into this game for the Chargers. Justin Herbert, of course, is one of the best, not just the best quarterbacks in the NFL, but one of the rising stars in the league. And Jim Harbaugh, an amazing job in his first year as the head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers. And we talk about the emotions for the Chargers coming into this game. The Houston Texans, Tank Dell, the emotions are still running high from him as a result of losing him due to a devastating knee injury a couple of weeks ago in that game against the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Texans have not looked their best since the Dell injury. What kind of works for Houston in this situation is that they have a home game. Can C.J. Stroud get it done against one of the best defenses in the NFL during the regular season? That is going to be a tough task because the Chargers, again, they've had a great year this year, and they've got so much to play for in this game, playing for a city, playing for a region, playing for an area that has gone through it, and they're still going through it. But I think this is going to be an emotion-filled game with the Los Angeles Chargers and the Houston Texans. I think this should be a great game. I think this should be a fascinating game, particularly coming down to the two quarterbacks with Justin Herbert and C.J. Stroud, with the Los Angeles Chargers going up against the Houston Texans. We have a rivalry game with the Pittsburgh Steelers going up against the Baltimore Ravens. So Pittsburgh down in the dumps right now in the midst of a 4-game losing streak. Mike Tomlin, another solid year for him. The Steelers are in the playoffs. Pittsburgh continuing the consistency in terms of going to the playoffs, even though Pittsburgh is in the midst of this losing streak. But Mike Tomlin, kudos to him, another playoff appearance. Russell Wilson, we'll see what he can do. Russell wants to be in Pittsburgh. Could he be the answer for the next 2 to maybe 3 years? This game could determine it. For the Baltimore Ravens, no Zay Flowers in this game, a knee injury. He won't play. However, they have Derrick Henry. They're going to have a lot of Derrick Henry in this game. And you know they're going to have plenty of Lamar Jackson in this game, right? So the Ravens and the Steelers, this is a rivalry game. There's so much riding in this contest. The Steelers battling a 4-game losing streak. Baltimore, this is a pressure-filled year for them. Derrick Henry, it's pressure for him. Lamar Jackson's got a ton of pressure on him, considering him being an MVP candidate. It's a lot riding on this game. And when you know Steelers, Ravens, this rivalry for decades has always been tough and emotional and intense. And it should come down to which quarterback will make the fewest mistakes. Will it be Russell Wilson or will it be Lamar Jackson? That's the Pittsburgh Steelers going up against the Baltimore Ravens. We have the Denver Broncos going up against the Buffalo Bills. So for Denver, what an amazing year it was for the Broncos. Sean Payton, in only his second year as the head coach of the Broncos, again with the whole Russell Wilson situation, the management parting ways with him, and they draft Bo Nix. And Bo Nix is going to be a close candidate to Jaden Daniels for this year's Offensive Rookie of the Year. Bo Nix, similar skills to Drew Brees, but taller, more athletic. And Marvin Mims Jr. had a solid year for the Broncos this year. And then also Denver's defense, one of the best in the league, and the defensive coordinator, Vance Joseph, doing an amazing job with the Broncos defense. Buffalo, you know the MO, right? Another pressure-filled year for the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen, MVP candidate. Buffalo, again, another great year for them. They get another home playoff game. Will they get further in the playoffs? What's going to happen with the future of Sean McDermott? A lot is riding on this game, and Denver's tough. Denver's been very tough this year, especially towards the end of the regular season. They have proven their worth times 10, and anytime it's a playoff game, especially in January in Buffalo, it's always raucous. It's always raucous during the regular season, but January football feels so different in Buffalo, and this should be a tight game between the Denver Broncos and the Buffalo Bills. The Green Bay Packers will square off against the Philadelphia Eagles. So for Green Bay, they're going to be missing one of their top weapons. Christian Watson, done for the year with a torn ACL. And, that's going to sting a little bit for Green Bay. So they're going to have to rely not just on Jordan Love to get it done with his arms and his legs, but also a lot of Josh Jacobs in this game. Josh has been an X factor for Green Bay's offense, and he is going to, I believe his duties are going to increase times 10 in this game against the Philadelphia Eagles. As for the home game in the wild card, Saquon Barkley, he's going to be healthy. He didn't play in the regular season finale. Jalen Hurts was in concussion protocol for 2 weeks. He's healthy. He's ready to go. Everybody's going to be ready to go. Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert. Everybody's ready to play in this game for the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Eagles, this game is always pressure-filled for the Eagles. Anything dealing with Philadelphia sports is pressure-filled, right? Anything dealing with Philadelphia and their sports teams, it's always pressure-filled every year. You have to get it done, no questions asked. And Saquon Barkley, MVP candidate, didn't get a chance to break the record. I'm pretty sure he's refreshed, and I'm sure he's going to look for a monster game against the Green Bay Packers. So when you think about Packers-Eagles, you think about, of course, 4th and 26, the NFC divisional game from 2003. Brett Favre and, of course, Donovan McNabb connecting with Hollywood Freddie Mitchell in that game. And then, of course, the Packers, their last playoff meeting, they beat the Eagles in 2010 in the NFC wildcard game in Philadelphia. And then earlier this year, they had the game in Brazil as part of the NFL International Series with the Eagles beating the Packers 34-31. But it's going to be cold, it's going to be chilly, and Packers-Eagles is going to be intense. This should be a fun one between Green Bay and Philadelphia. The Washington Commanders square off against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So for Tampa, what an amazing year it was for them. This regular season was all about them defending the run. It was all about Bucky Irving. It was all about Mike Evans and the quarterback, Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield, I think maybe if he had a little bit more monster numbers, he would be considered to be a candidate for this year's MVP race. He won't be mentioned, but Baker, again, another phenomenal year this year, and we see why Tampa Bay made the investment for him and giving him that contract extension this past off season. As for the Washington Commanders, in my opinion, it feels really good to have Washington back in the mix in terms of seeing them in the playoff picture, just seeing them play in January. Jaden Daniels, a once-in-a-lifetime talent. I mean, Commanders fans and just football fans are so excited, have been treated to some exciting games this year, not just from him, but just the Washington Commanders as a whole with great talent like Terry McLaurin and Brian Robinson Jr. and also Frankie Louvu on the defensive side. And how about Bobby Wagner and Zach Ertz, who have found the fountain of youth in their first year with Washington. And Dan Quinn definitely deserves strong consideration for Coach of the Year honors. And what a great job he's done with the Commanders. And, of course, ownership with Josh Harris being the majority owner, Magic Johnson, the minority owner of the team. Also key people like Doug Williams, who's the executive director of player personnel. Commanders done a great job this year. This should be interesting with the excitement coming into this game with Washington and Tampa Bay. The Minnesota Vikings will square off against the Los Angeles Rams. So with the Rams, a lot of emotion will be in this game. So much is at stake with this game, specifically going on with the wildfires in the Los Angeles area and in that particular part of Southern California. The Rams are going to be playing for a lot in this game. It's going to be emotion-filled on their end. And the Vikings, it's going to be emotion-filled for them as well, because this game could dictate what happens in the offseason. Will Sam Darnold be brought back for maybe 2, 3, maybe a 4-year contract? Or will they test the waters of free agency and maybe hand the keys to J.J. McCarthy a little bit early? Whatever the case may be, Vikings and Rams, man, this should be a game filled with a lot of offense. I believe in this game, and as I stated earlier, particularly on the Rams side, there's going to be a lot of emotions in this game. And this was supposed to be a Rams home game at the SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California, but because of the wildfires that are happening in the Los Angeles area, the game has been moved to State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona, which is home to the NFL's Arizona Cardinals. But again, so much is at stake in this game, and it should be a lot It's a lot of storylines. There's certainly going to be a lot of drama between the Minnesota Vikings and the Los Angeles Rams. All right, now it's time for my game of the week. My game of the week will be the Washington Commanders going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What a season it has been for both teams. For the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield definitely showing with his play this year, showing that he is definitely deserving of the contract extension that he got this past off season. Mike Evans will be a future Hall of Famer. Another 1,000-yard season for him. Bucky Irving came out of nowhere this year and certainly was an X factor in the Buccaneers offense. The way Tampa Bay defended the run this year was simply outstanding. They stifled a lot of teams that had great running games, and they did that with such precision. And Todd Bowles, again, another solid year for him. Todd Bowles has been consistent since he's been a member of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Washington Commanders. You talk about a franchise being one of the creme de la creme in the history of the NFL. And boy, Commanders fans and football fans, broadcasters, journalists like myself, so excited to see Washington back in the mix of things. Jaden Daniels, a once-in-a-lifetime talent. Jaden Daniels is a star, and he is on the verge of becoming a superstar, and he has the opportunity to propel himself to superstar status beyond that if the Commanders can get a playoff victory. Terry McLaurin, underrated, so exciting, one of the best wide receivers in the league. It's nice to see him get his just due as well. Zach Ertz, finding the fountain of youth in Washington. Brian Robinson Jr., Austin Eckler, also Jeremy McNichols and Chris Rodriguez at the running game. Very effective. Also, Bobby Wagner in his first year with the Commanders on the defensive side. He's found the fountain of youth as well. Frankie Louvu has played at a high level as well. Dan Quinn definitely deserves some strong consideration for Coach of the Year honors. I think this Commanders-Buccaneers game is going to be outstanding. It's going to come down to not only Baker Mayfield trying to make plays with his legs, but most importantly, Baker getting the ball out quickly and efficiently. You know Baker, he can put the ball right on the money, and he's accurate, especially when he has the pass protection necessary to make it happen. Jaden Daniels. Jaden will get it done one way or another. He can get it done throwing, or he can get it done with his legs. If they need Jaden to run the ball and get a first down, times that, he can get it done. If they need Jaden to throw the ball downfield, maybe to Terry McLaurin or maybe Zach Ertz or even maybe, Diami Brown or Olamide Zaccheaus, he can do that as well. When it's all said and done, this game will come down to the quarterbacks. Jaden Daniels, Baker Mayfield. I think this is going to be the show stealer of the Super Wildcard weekend. The Washington Commanders versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. My game of the week. All right, before we get on out of here, I want to give you my picks on who I think will win Super Wildcard weekend. I like the LA Chargers to beat the Houston Texans. I like the Baltimore Ravens to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. I like the Buffalo Bills to beat the Denver Broncos. I like the Philadelphia Eagles to beat the Green Bay Packers. I like the Washington Commanders to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I like the LA Rams to beat the Minnesota Vikings. So again, my picks are LA Chargers, Baltimore, Buffalo, Philadelphia, Washington, LA Rams. And that's it. And there you have it. And that's going to do it for another exciting edition of the program. Till next time, everybody, I'm Ed Robinson saying so long. And before we get on out of here, again, another setback for the another setback for Deshaun Watson. Quarterback Deshaun Watson ruptured his Achilles tendon once again. He had a setback during training that was taking place during a training session that he had in Miami. So the Cleveland Browns announced it on their social media platforms as well as on other media platforms that Deshaun Watson re-ruptured his Achilles tendon, and his status for the 2025 NFL season is highly unlikely. And that's tough, man, when you have a setback like that, when you re-rupture your Achilles. But again, the Cleveland Browns have announced that quarterback Deshaun Watson has re-ruptured his Achilles tendon, and his status for the 2025 NFL season is highly unlikely. And once again, that's going to do it for this edition of the program. Again, our thoughts and prayers are with the victims of the terrible wildfires in the Los Angeles area, and our thoughts and prayers are with those affected. And again, from my family to yours, I'd like to wish you and yours a happy new year. Till next time, everybody, take care.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning into the channel. Remember to click like, share, and subscribe, and thank you for watching.